Good morning and welcome to the Way of Life midweek check-in. I'm Michael Schechter and very happy to welcome you for a quick midweek chat as you move through the Way of Life program. Right now we're in week 3 and again, I say this every week, but this is a wonderful program and if you can stick to the lessons and life habits that we're teaching you over the next 12 weeks, you will have a lot of success in life in terms of reducing your risk of getting sick and improving your overall health. Now, week 3 materials are focused on exercise. We touched a little bit on exercise last week, but this week the handouts and the video guide you through beginning an exercise program. Again, I always remind people to remember the 4 elements of exercise that we need to build into our lives. Aerobic exercise, and the more active we are, the better in terms of our metabolic rate, like we talked about last week. Strength training, something to preserve that muscle mass as we move on through life. So that's aerobic, strength, balance is so important. So incorporating some balance work into your workouts is a great idea. And finally, flexibility. So flexibility and balance help us recover from any injuries and setbacks we have. The more muscle mass we have in reserve also helps us. So exercise is not only good to maintain your health, it helps us if we have setbacks in life. So I hope you're all exercising this week. The habit today, the weekly habit this week includes some resistance training. So push-ups, again, start any way you can. If you can do regular push-ups, go ahead. If you need to do modified push-ups, that's fine. Start trying to get 10 and move up. Squats and lunges are wonderful for those huge muscle groups in your legs and definitely improve muscle mass. So if you can start incorporating things like push-ups, lunges, and squats into your daily routine, you'll be doing great. So quickly, if you didn't see last week's talk, we talked about the calorie budget. And of course, everybody understands that metabolism involves a balance between what we take in through food and what we burn in different ways through exercise, digestion, being alive. In general, we burn calories throughout the day. We talked about going to this wonderful website if you want to look at your daily requirements, including calories. And then we took some time to illustrate the difference between calorie burn if you're sedentary and calorie burn if you're active. And I used an example of myself here. And you can see that if I'm very active, I can allow myself nearly 1,000 extra calories a day, which equates to a lot of food. So again, it makes a big difference. So by now, as you're entering week 3, a quick check mark of your success includes, you should be beginning to see improvements in your lifestyle habits, making strategies to improve your health and nutritional status. You should have some idea of a daily calorie budget. Again, how much food you're eating, that's what we ask you to track. Am I eating just the right amount of food? Am I eating too much? Getting those produce picks in is so helpful. Whole grains reduce your risk of diabetes, reduce your risk of heart disease. And of course, you'll hear me talk about exercise throughout the 12 weeks of our program. We touched a little bit, and you should be developing strategies to understand and control your hunger, your cravings, and understand ways to still satisfy the cravings sometimes, but also sometimes potentially hold off on elements of the craving. And if you're experiencing weight loss, that is wonderful. Today, we're going to talk about a significant component to our health, and that is sleep. Now, sleep is a biologic need, just like food and water. So not having enough sleep can lead to health consequences, including increased appetite and changes in weight. but sleep is a biologic phenomenon. It is an essential need. And if we're sleeping poorly, generally, there are strategies to improve it. And we're going to spend a few minutes. Next week's challenge will be to try to sleep 7 hours a night. As you can see from this chart, recommended sleep, most adults need at least 6 hours of sleep, but hitting 7 is a great idea. When people have problems with sleep, they go to see doctors, and it really helps to understand basic terminology when we talk about sleep disorders in medicine. So you probably heard before that sleep can be broken down into stages based on things like breathing patterns and EEG brain waves, right? So we definitely have different stages of brain waves. We have our awake brain waves. We have light sleep, and then we have heavy sleep, which is slow wave sleep, which is restorative and deep. We need to have that. And then we have REM sleep when we do dreaming and things like that. So that's important to have a sense of. Other terms that your doctor is going to want to talk to you about. He or she may talk about something called sleep latency, and that's simply the time it takes you to fall asleep. So if I get in bed and fall asleep 10 minutes later, my sleep latency is 10 minutes. Total sleep time, the time spent actually sleeping, not just in bed. And then we also have, from that, we derive something called sleep efficiency, which is your total sleep time divided by the amount of time that you're in bed. And this is expressed as a percentage. So here's an example of using these kinds of terms in a real example. So I go to bed at 10:30, I fall asleep at 10:45, my sleep latency is 15 minutes. I wake up in the middle of the night, I use the bathroom 3 a.m., I go back to sleep at 3:05, I wake up at 6:30, I get out of bed at 7. Okay. My total time in bed for the night, 8.5 hours. Time asleep, 7 hours and 45 minutes. I must have been pretty tired. That makes my sleep efficiency 91%, which is pretty good. What we want to target in adults is 90% sleep efficiency or greater. That's in people under the age of 65. And then when we get to older folks, we see that sleep is not quite as efficient as it used to be. So we're looking for them to be at 85%. If our numbers show an inefficient sleep pattern, we're spending too much time in bed, doctors are probably going to want you to sort of trim that down and try to improve that sleep efficiency number. So that's an example of how doctors sort of look at the biology of sleep. Now, we're biologically wired to sleep and to wake up. That's called circadian rhythms. That's sort of our internal clock. But our body has a number of rhythms, and circadian rhythms are clearly understood in terms of awake messages and sort of go to sleep messages. These are messages that are sent by chemicals to all parts of our body. And our circadian clock is generally regulated by exposure to light. So our optic nerve in the back of our eye senses light and brightness, and we get an activating response. Chemical messengers like cortisol, serotonin, adrenaline, and others tell our body it's time to wake up, tell our muscles it's time to move. Now, exposing ourselves to light in the morning is a great way to set that activating response right when we wake up. So again, if we're on someone who's on a night shift, we have to figure out ways to mimic the circadian rhythm, but it gets a little bit more complicated. So there's an activating response when we start the day, and then generally we see what I call a deactivating response, a winding down. And again, this is a response mediated by chemical messengers, melatonin, GABA, and others. The names aren't important, but it's important to understand that there is a rhythm to our bodies that we need to respect, especially if we're having trouble with our sleep. Circadian rhythms are driven by the nervous system. The human nervous system is divided into a couple parts, a part that activates us and wakes us up. And that sometimes is called the sympathetic nervous system. And then on the other side, the relaxing side, we have what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the way our body is divided up. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system is sort of associated with relaxing. My partner, Bill Frankel, says sometimes the sympathetic fight or flight presses the gas and the parasympathetic presses the brake. And there are actually 9 ways that we know to stimulate that parasympathetic response. But as we think about sort of a wind down period to our day, these are great ways to begin to help our body rest and digest, heal and restore, whatever you want to say. But you can see the 9 things there. And a lot of these can be incorporated into a winding down routine. So let's talk for a few minutes before I let you go today about some sound sleep strategies. You may at some point see a doctor for sleep problems. You should be aware that doctors are somewhat reluctant to prescribe sleep medicine. So they're going to encourage what they call non-pharmacologic, non-medication strategies to improve sleep first. And when I talk to people about biologic strategies to improve, sleep strategies, sound sleep strategies, I talk about dividing these things up between biologic, environmental, behavioral, and things like that. So in terms of biologic strategies, these are things that'll help that circadian clock reset. Go to bed when you feel tired, pay attention to your body signals, get up at the same time every day and expose yourself to light. Use that light and darkness to your advantage. You want to sleep in a dark, cool room. We'll talk about that in a minute. Avoid stimulants, avoid biologic things that will pep you up. So caffeine, nicotine, a lot of stress before bed, arguing before bed, exercise too close to bedtime, all stimulates that other side of the nervous system. So it could impair your ability to get a sound night's sleep. A lot of people have gastrointestinal issues with spicy foods. So when they lie flat, sometimes they experience symptoms of reflux and things like that, and that sometimes keeps them awake. So sometimes those people have to either stop eating spicy meals so close to bed or elevate their pillows, something of that nature. So that's quick ideas of the biology side. Let's talk for a second about the mental state when we lie in bed, especially if we're frustrated about our sleep. This is a triad I introduced in week 1 that we call the cognitive triad. And I used an example of how our thoughts sometimes influence our feelings, and our feelings can influence our behaviors, and it can go in any direction. So if I'm feeling sad, I may start, let's do a sleep thing. If I'm feeling nervous about being able to sleep, I may start thinking I'm not going to get to sleep. I'm not going to get to sleep. And this is going to make me more agitated. And instead of doing the behaviors I need to do, like calming down and winding down, I'm starting to accelerate. So this is the idea, if you remember, of the cognitive triad. I used it last time to illustrate eating behaviors. But we can also use this idea for sleep or any other area of life. So cognitive strategies, when we talk about trying to sleep, easy stuff, don't try too hard. Learn to passively stay awake and understand how to relax. We're going to talk about relaxation strategies as we move toward meditation and those kinds of things in upcoming weeks. But last week I mentioned belly breathing, using those core muscles to stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system and begin to help us wind down. Practice letting go. So if you're worried about things and lying there in bed, playing tapes in your head, learn to stop the tapes, let go, work on what we call mindfulness, just paying attention to the moment, teaching your body to relax. And again, I mentioned breathing techniques already. So, so far we have biologic, we have cognitive strategies for the old noggin, and then finally, environmental fixes. So you definitely want to sleep in a dark, dark, dark environment. So get rid of your cell phone if you can. Try to avoid keeping the TV on. Use a sleep timer for the TV. When you get up, if you do get up in the middle of the night, try to avoid looking at your cell phone, things like that. I love the idea of a tech-free bed zone. I think that's a great idea, although people are resistant to doing that. Cool temperatures, certainly below 67 degrees. So you want it to be nice and cool. Lots of people are into these weighted blankets. I use one, and I think it also helps sort of my environmental fixes. You want to pay particular attention to blue light as you move into the evening. Remember, trying to respect the circadian rhythms and avoid blue light sources in a nice, cool environment. The other piece to a sound sleep strategy is a winding down routine. Look, as parents, we have bedtime routines for our kids that help them wind down and induce sleep, quiet time, things like that. As adults, we should keep these habits. These are good habits. So teach yourself to look forward to sleep. Teach yourself to not go to bed angry, to work on calming and grateful thoughts. Work with your partner if he or she is affecting your sleep patterns, and pay attention to all five senses. Touch. I mentioned the weighted blanket, the nice cool environment, dark, 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 soothing sounds if you like those, and finally aromas that induce some relaxation are wonderful for certain people. Other bedtime routines like a cup of warm non-caffeinated beverages can help some people fall asleep. So these are all great winding down routines that we begin to associate with a nice, healthy sleep pattern. So take-home messages: sleep is as important as food and water to your survival. I didn't mention that in my introduction, but clearly laboratory animals that are deprived of sleep do just as poorly as those that are deprived of food. Examine your behaviors around bedtime, especially if you're having issues with your sleep. If your sleep efficiency isn't where you want it to be, work on behaviors that stimulate that sort of rest and digest side of our parasympathetic nervous system, and use these non-pharmacologic strategies before you talk to your doctor about any medications. In closing, we want you to keep tracking. We like when people track, and we think it really helps the Success in the Way of Life program. In terms of going back, you can only go back 3 days for tracking purposes. You should be aware of that, and always keep things in balance. I talk a lot about balance, and I'm going to be talking about balance throughout these 12 weeks, but we definitely, the most important balance here in terms of your ongoing relationship with this program is to be accountable, but also forgive yourself. And remember, tomorrow's another day. And the beauty of being a human being is that we're all capable of change. So thanks for coming. I hope you tune in next week. We will be talking about another fun topic. And if there's anything I can do to make these better for you, let me know. And in closing, don't forget that all of you working the Way of Life program have the opportunity to talk to a health coach or a registered dietitian at any time. So if you're having any issues or you have any questions, feel free to email us at wayoflife@bewellsolutions.com. So until next week, I'll sign off and wish you luck with the program. See you next week.